Hey, future millionaires, this is Phil from the Next Chapter team. And in this top 10 article review, we're going to focus on 10 mistakes you need to avoid when you're trying to pay off debts. Now, this could be small debts or a very large debt like a mortgage or a very big student loan. Whatever it may be, these are 10 issues that you want to avoid. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another top 10 article review video from the Next Chapter team. But before you do that, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that post notification bell. If you like this article, please give us a like. Talk to you soon. First up on the article recap is not having a repayment plan or strategy in place as you enter your debt repayment journey. Not having a plan leads you to be guessing. And you really don't want to be guessing when you're trying to get rid of your debts over the long term. And then on top of that, you want to make sure your plan is clear, achievable, and reasonable. You don't want to have a plan that doesn't account for life. So a lot of times when we're coaching people, we walk through the many factors of that person's life and make sure that their debt repayment plan and their monthly spending or their monthly budget fully accounts for their entire life and their goals. And you're going to be balancing that throughout your debt repayment journey. And then also you should be revisiting that plan every paycheck or even every month in effort to just fine tune it. And it'll probably take you 3 to 6 months to fine tune it to get it perfect. And then you're just going to keep reworking it until you've paid off all of your debts. So again, the first item that the article calls out is not having a reasonable repayment strategy. And you've got to be clear about it, and you've got to really fine tune it and know that your first cut at it is just going to be just okay. And over months, it's going to get better and better and better. And you're going to fine tune it, and you're going to be able to stick to it further and further and further. The number 2 mistake, taking out a payday loan to help you pay off your credit. First off, payday loans are racked with fees and they are really, really bad. So as a hypothetical, the article calls out that a payday loan could have annual interest that exceeds 400% annually. So a payday loan is really high in fees and interest, and it's not going to help you in the overall picture. It may help you for a small period of time, but in the long haul, you're better off paying off that loan or that debt a little slower than paying off one debt really fast just to incur a bigger debt with a payday loan. And there's a lot of shady business practices around payday loans, and that's why they're under tight scrutiny through the various government agencies. The third item that they call out is using home equity to pay off your debts. Now, this is really not a great idea. Why? Primarily because you're basically shifting around your debts. Let's put it this way. So if you had like $30,000 in credit card debt, which sucks, but hey, this happens. And then you take $30,000 of equity out of your home to pay off that $30,000 credit card debt. And then you don't do that extra step of getting in the habit of not using that credit card or getting in the habit of paying it off weekly or every month. Then you're likely going to find yourself in that $30,000 debt again at some period of time. And then you have 2 problems now. You have a HELOC that you didn't pay off and a new credit card balance that has regrown because you didn't address the root cause. So HELOCs and taking equity out on a home to pay off debts is a really bad idea. The article calls out some of the more common usage is to do big home repairs or home renovations, but then treat it like a debt. Be very aggressive and have a very strategic plan to pay it off. If you can, in fact, it's better off to save up. A lot of times when I'm coaching people, I say the one time that it's kind of okay to have a HELOC or take out a HELOC is when you're doing like a big repair, like a roof, something real big, that type of thing that you may not have the emergency fund in place. So you may have to go down that route. Fourth item calls out heading to the pawn shop. Pawning off your goods just to pay off some debts is probably not the best approach, especially to a pawn shop. They're going to give you the bare bones price. You're probably better off doing Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or other such things to help you get rid of things you don't need. But especially if you're doing jewelry, and then it becomes sour, right? Because that money, you may have gotten rid of some type of family heirloom or something of that nature, and you're going to have regret. I'd rather you do a side hustle and do something to get extra money to pay off the debt than actually going to a pawn shop. Number 5, taking a cash advance on your credit card. Taking a credit card cash advance is a really bad idea, bad play. Why? Because there's lots of fees Not as dramatic as a payday loan, but there are lots of fees around it. And if you're taking a credit card advance, a cash advance from a credit card that you already have a balance on, if you're not paying attention and you aren't extremely intentional when you're making those monthly payments as you're paying it all back, it's not going to hit that cash advance. And those fees are going to snowball. I know I did this at one point way back when I was in a couple tough spots. I used to have to call the credit card every month and tell them how to apply my payment. Even though I clicked the button pay online, I had to call them afterwards and say, hey, I paid $100. This is how I want you to divide it. And it sucked. It was a lot of pain and I have to double check on them. So if you can, avoid this. Don't go down this path. Another one, using a debt settlement company. I did this once. Terrible. Terrible experience, terrible customer service. And in fact, most times, if your credit score is just okay, in the process of using a debt settlement company, your credit score is going to become garbage, like super bad. What they basically try to do is get you in a situation that they accumulate enough money for your debts. Let's say you had $10,000, they're trying to accumulate $3,000 to $4,000 on your behalf, and they're doing lots of fees on top of that. And then they're going to call the company and say, we'd like to settle on the $10,000 with $4,000. Will you take the payment in full? And eventually the company will say yes. And then what happens from there is they settle on it, right? And then the debt's forgiven eventually. The debt's forgiven, the excess, right? That difference is forgiven. It shows up in your taxes because it's a form of income. That relief is a form of income. And then on top of that, it also shows up on your credit report for a period of time. I don't want to go into the specifics because I'm not an expert in credit reports, but it shows up in your, the article calls out some details around that. It shows up in your credit report for a period of time as an outstanding loan. So you think you're done, but the credit bureau doesn't know you're done. And these companies are not, being proactive because they don't need to be. They don't want to be. They didn't get all their money, right? So it's not in their best interest to do right by you, the consumer. So really, stay away from debt settlement companies. They're really not helpful. They make it sound like it's helpful, but it's really not. Number 7 is filing for bankruptcy. And I don't want to go deep on this, but a lot of times, in many cases, generally speaking, it is worth it for your sanity to go through the process of figuring out how you're going to pay it off, working extra jobs, switching jobs. If you're renting, which is easier than to move than if you're on a home. If you're renting, reduce your rent by moving, making the right actions within your spending plan to avoid bankruptcy, and developing an aggressive, reasonable plan, step 1, to avoid bankruptcy is great. Bankruptcy stays with you for 7 years. So it's kind of like this. If you can't, it stays in your records for 7 to 10 years. If you can't have this all resolved in 7 to 10 years, then maybe bankruptcy is good for you. But if not, you're going to tank everything, all of your credit scores, everything for 7 to 10 years. So you got to pick. I'd rather do pain for 2 to 5 years than have to deal with my credit score and everything being broken for 7 to 10 years. And remember, some employers actually look at your credit report and they will do background checks on you, including financials, before they hire you. So not only are you messing up today, you're messing up the next 7 to 10 years, and you might be inhibiting yourself from applying to certain roles and jobs that could be your dream spot, all because you filed bankruptcy because you didn't know. So bankruptcy, really, you have to be extremely educated about what you're doing, extremely weigh your factors, and then move forward from there. Number 8 item, paying student loans, mortgage, auto loans on credit cards. Wow. Especially if you're not going to pay off the credit cards completely. And here's why. You're paying interest on student loans, mortgages, and auto loans, unless you have a 0%. But 2 of those, you're not going to have a 0% for sure. That's your student loans and mortgages. You're not going to have a 0%. So you're paying interest there. Then you're moving over to your credit card, right? That has interest too. That has monthly interest. APR is going from between 15 and even up to 29%, depending on your state and what the state allows. So again, you're paying interest twice. First with the original lender, second on your credit card. Wow, this is a bad idea. Just wow. Double the interest. And all this is, most of this interest you can't even write off. You could write off a certain amount of student loans and a certain amount of mortgage, depending on your tax situation. But you can't write off auto loans. So paying interest twice. And remember, credit cards, you can't write off a dime of that on your personal income taxes. Hey, number 10, here it is. Keep making credit card charges along the way. You keep building up that credit card and trying to pay it off at the same time. You put yourself in this treadmill that doesn't stop. So really, you want to slow down, if not completely stop using the credit card as soon as possible in your debt payoff journey. It'll help you make traction and continue to see the results of seeing the balance drop. Moving into some bonus items, the article calls out the importance of determining if you can continue making contributions to retirement and continue building up an emergency fund. You've got to decide which one when you are. This is really a preference play. I tell a lot of people that it's a good idea to go into your debt payoff journey with at least 1 month of your emergency fund. And if you have variable income, you might want to move it up to 2 months, but really you got to know exactly where you are. And then the retirement contribution part, that's really touchy, really debatable, because that retirement money, especially if it's a high percentage, that you could be using that to pay off your debts. But sometimes it makes more sense because you have a really long journey to do the minimum to get the employer match. The final item that the article calls out is close the credit card account as soon as you pay it off. Again, this is a more of a preference thing depending on what you're doing. If you're already in a home and you don't plan on leaving, this might be the right move. But if you're in the prep for a home stage, closing out a credit card does affect your overall credit score. So it's really debatable. I would seek some really good advice before I take that line of action. But again, the article is pretty rock solid. Overall, some great tips. Hope you enjoyed the article review. So many more videos to come. See you in the next one. Hey, let's jump into a recap of all the items you want to avoid on your path to paying off your debts. Number 1, the article calls out forgetting to have a reasonable repayment strategy. It's being really important here to have a reasonable plan that you can stick to, and then fine-tune that plan every month until you get that knocked out, until you have it nailed down. It usually takes people 3 to 6 months to really get this dialed in. Sometimes longer, and that's okay. As long as you see it through, that's what's important. Next item, payday loans. Payday loans have ridiculous interest rates, so avoid that. Number 3, using your home equity to pay off debts. Why? Because you're basically transferring your debts from usually insecure things like a credit card to a secure thing like your home. And on top of that, if you haven't broken the habit of using credit cards incorrectly and building up balances, you're basically going to have a bigger problem in a couple of years where you have a home equity loan that's not paid off and now a credit card balance. Heading to the pawn shop. Number 4, why? You don't get the best rate at a pawn shop. And on top of that, a lot of times you're heading to the pawn shop with something that you might actually regret many years from now. It's not going to be a blender or a Peloton. It's going to be like jewelry. And that's going to suck, especially if that jewelry has some sentimental value. Number 5, our item that the article calls out, taking a credit card cash advance. Similar to a payday loan, this is going to have very high interest rates and it's going to have lots of fees. So you really want to stay away from this. Next, using a debt settlement company. Why? Lots of fees, and in the mix of the debt settlement process, you are going to destroy your credit. So if you have okay credit, it's going to go down to just terrible or poor credit. Number 7, filing for bankruptcy. Again, the article calls out bankruptcy stays with you 7 to 10 years. So if you can't pay off all your stuff in 7 to 10 years, then okay, maybe bankruptcy might be worth it. But if not, it's probably better off going through the pain. Paying student loans and mortgages and auto loans with credit cards. Because again, what ends up happening is you're paying interest twice. First, you're paying interest on the actual initial item, student loans, credit cards, student loans, mortgages, and auto loans, and then on the credit cards as well. So you're really not helping yourself. And then number 9, the article calls out, big one, is making the credit card charges as you're paying them off. And then number 10, stopping contributing to retirement and an emergency fund if you're not in a good footing. Again, this one's very debatable, but it's an interesting point to zone in on that this is important. We've got some bonus items we're going to show you in a second. The final item, and again, this one falls into that debatable sector, is closing out your credit card account as soon as you paid it off. Again, this may make sense if you already have your home mortgage in place and you're pretty good and not going to be taking out any big loans for at least 2 to 5 years. Sweet, do it. But if you're paying off debts with the plan of being in a home right after, like months or a year, this may not be the right move. It might be more appropriate to actually keep the line of credit open with the credit card and just not use it, especially if it doesn't have an annual fee. So again, it is really important to know all these facts and avoid these traps along the way as you pay off your debts. Hey, thanks for staying to the end. This video is brought to you by the Next Chapter team. If you enjoyed the video, please take a moment to hit that like button, drop a comment, subscribe, share with your friends and family. This will help the channel reach out to more individuals just like you. We offer one-on-one coaching where we work with people and small businesses to determine a clear path to achieving their financial goals. This includes things like budgeting to reduce debts, planning for big purchases, and even learning how to build wealth with the tools that you have readily available to you. So please see our link below to schedule a free 30-minute call with our team to talk through coaching and understanding your current financial situation. Also, check out some of our affiliate links below for our high yield savings account. This is a great place to put your money when you're saving up for those big purchases and your emergency fund. Check out some of our videos right here, and please enjoy and see you in the next video.